Okay, so here we have in front of us today an HPI K5.9 out of the HPI Savage that took a bath that some of you freaked out about. Try and jack up my filming situation here a little bit more. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a look inside really quick, and we're going to get that underway. So they're a pretty good motor. I mean, I've seen a lot of people that like them. I've never personally run one. When I had my HPI Savage many years ago, I had the OS 30 VG engine, which is unfortunately no longer made by OS, in the Savage 25 with a 3-speed transmission. It was a hell of a lot of fun. Originally had a 4.6 in it. The 4.6 unfortunately blew up because the high-speed needle fell apart at full throttle and leaned itself out, and that was the end of that. So I'm going to take off our pull starter. There's a one-way shaft in there. It's kind of stuck in there, so I'm just going to leave it. I don't want to try to force it out. And next we're going to pull off the size. I believe it's the other one. Okay. Pull the cylinder head and have a look in there. This engine, I've never started it before. It is used. A buddy of mine, like I said, he just got it with an HPI Savage. It sat for many years and it was all gummed up. It wouldn't even turn over the slightest little bit. Quite a large engine. Okay, so this is a 5.9 cc, whatever that is, 30.30, something like that. 32, I think, actually, because it's almost the same engine as an axial 32. So here we have our head. It's a two-piece with the head button. You'll see our gasket there. Burp. Oh, excuse me. Club soda, man, I'm telling you. Right, we're going to remove the back plate. Too bad I couldn't put music to any of this kind of stuff, and unfortunately YouTube doesn't allow that. I tried to put music to one of my videos a couple weeks ago, even though it was royalty free, and it still got flagged, so I don't know what the hell to do about that. Fucking bastards, I hate that shit. YouTube used to be good back in the day when you could actually do things like that, like put music and do this and that, and you could swear without people complaining and whining. Okay, so here we have our back plate. Quite large. There's an O-ring on it. Make sure that's in good shape and it's not torn. Here's our shim. And our crazy large one-way bearing. You can see the starter pin on it that sits in the back of the crankshaft. So now we're going to try and pull the sleeve. Oh, here we go. Quite a large sleeve. As you can see, oh, didn't notice that came out, but now I'm glad I did notice it. See that the alignment pin kind of came out with the sleeve. That's no problem. You can put them back in. Just make sure they sit all the way in. That's basically so you don't get your sleeve alignment wrong, because if you put this in the wrong way, your engine won't run, or it'll run very poorly. As you can see, we have the large port, which is the exhaust port. We have 4 transfer ports and 2, well, intake, I guess, boost ports, whatever, at the back. And I'm going to put put our piston at the top. I'm not going to pull the crank out because I don't have the tools to do that at the moment. Sometimes this can, oh, there we go. So here's our piston, quite large actually. Like I said, it's you know, compared to my screwdriver here, it's obviously, you can see, much larger. Bronze bushed both ends, top and bottom. Not going to pull the crank out like I said, but there's the crank. I don't know how well you can see that. I don't have a flashlight. Or do I? Is there one behind me? No, there's not. I hate it when people touch my things. Anyways, you're going to take my word for it, but you can kind of see it in there. It's got those swish cutaways in it and stuff like that. And we're going to slap it back together here really quick. Just a little bit of a look inside, just in case there's no videos about it or someone just wants to see what the inside of a K5.9 looks like. The other day was my first time, so looks to be a fairly well-built engine. Put some castor oil. The reason why I like to use castor oil is because it has a really nice high film strength and it protects your engine really good. Put some in there. You always want to put oil in the most critical parts. Bearings, crankshaft, connecting rod, etc. to protect it when it first starts. And you'll have people bitch and say, oh, there's enough oil in the fuel. Yeah, well, I don't like to put my engines together dry, sorry. So, and if you do, that's your issue. Or your thing, whatever. Everyone does things differently. Sometimes people like to bitch about absolutely everything you do. And honestly, fuck them, I don't really care. But it's like someone was complaining about the Savage in the bathtub. That honestly doesn't hurt anything. The electronics have been replaced. All the bearings have been replaced. You know, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not what I did, it's how I did it. Simple as that. Anyways, enough of that BS. So we're going to look at the top of our sleeve. There's a notch right where my fingernail is pointed. And that's going to line up with our notch in our block. I like working on big blocks. They're actually a little easier to work on than small blocks. Fit your finger down there. Okay. Make sure that sits all the way down. Turns over nice and free. There's a good pinch at the top still. Some people will ask me or ask other people when the piston is around the top, they feel like see how the cylinder's trying to lift up? They'll feel like a tight spot there around the top. That's a good sign. That means that the cylinder's in still good shape. If there's none of that left, that means that your engine's probably worn out. We're going to look at all our parts here. Like I said, this should be using a bit of a hotter plug than that. But we're going to put our cylinder head button on, and a lot of people think, oh, just bolt that down, that's good enough. When you see engines set up like that with just the head button, they're set up for drag racing. They're only maybe running for a few minutes at a time. Get it up to operating temperature, blast down the track at some ridiculous speed, and then shut it off. So removing your head or cutting the head down, and I've seen a lot of people do it, is fucking stupid. So unless you're drag racing or you want your motor to overheat really, really bad, then do that. But other than that, run with a cooling head on. And because we're going into aluminum with steel, put a little drop of Afteron oil on the threads. It just helps things go back together a little easier and prevents damage, like stripped threads. Okay, so it went this way. You don't need to put so much oil in that you hydraulic the screws. Just going to put a little bit on there, just for a little protection. And you don't want to just tighten one screw down at a time, if you can help it, because that's not really good. You want to run all the screws down kind of just until they feel like they're about to tighten up, then back them off. Because if you don't, and you tighten one screw down at a time, your head could leak, you could warp your cylinder head, you can do some damage. Or your engine might not run right. So we're going to always go opposites from each other. And just just barely even snug them. And start to snug a little bit more evenly. Always go in a crisscross pattern, because that's how you do it. And like I said, use common sense. You don't need to make these screws incredibly tight, because if you strip them out, you're often screwed if that happens. No Loctite, ever. Don't put Loctite on your screws if you don't have to. That means something's wrong if you have to be doing that. And everything turns over. Oh, it's got monster compression. And we're going to just put our back plate back on. I'm going to hopefully get the Savage running within the next day or so. Apparently it's supposed to rain here where I am soon. Which is kind of good in a way, because it's been effing hot here. Make sure that pin slides in the back of the crank. There we go. Then we have our back cover. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a quick wipe down, just because I don't want greasy parts everywhere. Like I said, inspect the O-ring, make sure it's not cracked or torn or damaged. This part can be a little finicky. Oh, there we go. And the same thing applies for the back plate. Like, these screws have already got oil on them. You don't want to go just one screw extremely tight and then do the next kind of deal. You want to do it in a crisscross pattern with anything like this, because you can damage shit. And if ever you're putting screws and you notice they're kind of tight to put in, stop, because something's wrong. Oh, I forgot that shim. I wasn't paying attention. Oh, good thing. That could have been bad. On time here. Got a few minutes left. Need a power drill, actually. Need to invest in a new one, because mine shit the bed on me, unfortunately. There we go. Derp. Kind of forgot that thing. Let's kind of get everything to... There we go. Line back up again. I said I freaking ordered a tripod for my camera. It still hasn't showed up yet. And that was a couple months ago, so I messaged the seller, said it never showed up. Got a bunch of rigmarole, a bunch of fucking around, so I basically told the guy to shove it up his ass, and I ordered another one, so it should hopefully be here within next week sometime, I hope. Because I have more than had enough. And these bearings here, they say OS 12 CVR. You'll see what that's for next, maybe within a week or two. Hopefully sooner than that, because I have something that's in the mail I've already done a video on, and you'll see what I'm going to do with those at a later date. Yeah, we got our pull starter. If your pull starter ever slips, like it just doesn't grab, what you can do is see kind of where it's kind of discolored here. What you can do is take a little bit of 800 grit wet dry sandpaper, like emery cloth, and you can just take the glazing off. You're not trying to sand any, remove any material. You're just trying to clean it up a little bit and clean it up really well. And you could clean your one-way bearing out with this engine, because one-way bearings internal, sometimes they do get varnished up really bad. So you could take it apart, well, not take it apart, but clean it out, and then give it just a dot of automatic transmission fluid and reassemble everything. And that usually fixes that problem right quick. Like I said, this engine is going in the Savage today. The blue motor over there, that XTM, is... well, we're not sure what's going to happen with it yet. It's got really bad compression. We might have a repinch done on it. The bearings for sure are shot. The back plate, ironically enough, is made out of plastic, which is really strange. That was the video about the carburetor, sticking carburetor that I made the other day. I'll have a look at that one after. You don't need to tighten these screws like crazy tight either, because if you over tighten them, your pull starter could bind up on you and it might not allow the engine to turn over. So we're going to try and... Oh yeah, it's got monster compression. Barely even hold on to it. But here we have this XTM. I think it's called a 247. And it does turn over. The compression seems okay right now. That's only because there's a bunch of oil in the cylinder when I put it back together. But it's completely shot. The cylinder, or the piston rattles in the cylinder and goes almost all the way through the sleeve. There is a guy called Ray A Racing in the States, and I believe it's 20 bucks for a repinch. Because our dollar is lower than the US right now, it's going to cost a little bit more than that, so we're not sure what we're going to do with this motor yet. But you guys might see it at a later date. And of course, we have the Nova 28 here, which is just waiting on bearings for it. You guys saw the piston and sleeve install for this motor. So, yeah, keep your eye out for it. It will be coming back in my buddy's Revo, which it came out of. Anyhow, guys, just a little quick vid on this, or long vid, or I don't even know how long it is, but a video on this HPI K5.9. And more videos to come on at a later date. Anyways, guys, keep burning nitro and have fun out there.